Welcome everybody back to the 40 in Tennessee podcast. I'm Josh here with Houston and Randy. We're going to talk about some archaeology today, and hopefully our archaeologist guest will come on today to talk to us. We want to talk about some weird stuff. Maybe not, but I really want to talk about the dig site that's on one of our sites. Up on do we want to say have we said the name? We always do this every okay, so up on Bedlam Mountain. So
Cardwell.
Cardwell. Sorry, I'm sending them over to someplace else.
Yep. Ben Lomond's another site that we have.
Yeah. But there was a I can't even talk. Archaeology dig up there. And the archaeologist
back in the 90s.
Back in the 90s, the archaeologist we're gonna have on was part of that dig team. We want to ask him about him, get some history, a little history lesson hopefully today. If not, we're just gonna talk about it, and you're gonna get our theories. You're gonna get what we think it is. What did Darby? What did he think about the star map? Because we've shown that on the podcast.
You're asking what he thinks about it?
Yeah. Did you guys take him up to that?
He's took us up to that. That's how we found
it. To it.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I thought you got okay. I thought it was the other way around.
Yeah. So for years he was telling me, "Oh, there's some cool places I want to take you around. Like in the county." And I tried for. I mean, it was literally probably over 10 years. And some of the places me and Randy were going to, I think, was getting close to it. And he's like, "Okay, I'll take you up there finally." And it was legit just one of those things where schedules wasn't working out. It was always cold or what. Like he was going to have to pretty much do it on his vacation. And so, and he was telling me, he's like, "Dude, it's a rough hike up there." And he said, "It's easy to get lost up there." He's like, "You can easily come down on the wrong side and you're going to be like half a day trying to get back to your truck." And he's like, "And it's been 20 years since I've been up there. So like we would have to, kind of prepare all this stuff." But yeah, after he found out that me and Randy were getting close, he's like, "I'll take you up there." And yeah, one day took us up there. And
that blows my mind.
I remember that, like the funniest thing, maybe Mark was with us too, and maybe Kayla.
Yeah, they were.
But we all went up there and it was starting to rain on us. And so we kind of all huddled up under this like overhang on the rock. And the rest of us all knew like behind us was the map stone, but Randy didn't. Randy was just like looking around, and like so we were all just kind of waiting on him to like realize what was right behind him.
And sat down on it.
Yeah, he's like, "I feel so rude." But yeah, so it was like the map stone right there behind
him. What
the hell? I think I may be able to pull that up. I'm just never ready.
Yeah, I want to get his insight on that. That's when you told me about that, Randy, I was like, what? And it's just like, again, it just goes to my fact that you guys are the Stranger Things town. It's red. It's Hawkins, Tennessee, Hawkins down there. You guys got all the caves and archaeology digs and
upside down.
Yeah, fucking Sasquatch. Montauk mollusk. Okay. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, so that was, I think, the part that Randy said on.
Nice.
A little bit more clear etched out there. And I'm sure he'll talk about this, but what is believed is that they took like deer antler horns and carved some of that. But nobody knows the reason why, except that this used to be bigger, and nobody really has a picture of what it was before.
There's stuff on like that I'm gonna bring it up, Ancient Apocalypse, that has like they were showing some of the same style of like carvings on stones. I think they were out in Arizona or something.
There was somebody tell us that there was another one of these in the county, but I think when Darby went out there, I don't think it was as similar as we were all hoping.
I know there was one place that me and Darby went that somebody was like, "Hey, we think it's something like that." and we went down there, and it was nothing at all like that.
Yeah.
Has he
Well,
heard about a pyramid in the mountain?
I don't know if he has. I think he has. I'm not sure.
I'm just curious because we've been told that.
I think he's probably heard us talk about it.
all right. I can try. Let's see if he can get on here.
See if we can get him in here. Here we go. Here we go.
I texted you guys the other day. I'm just letting everybody else know. Like I told him, I was like, Darby's agreeing to this. I was like, but he's curmudgeonly about it. Like,
How long did it take
yeah, I
you?
guess.
How much work did it take you to do this?
How much what?
How much work? How much did you have to poke him to convince
He
him?
was just like, what all am I going to have to talk about?
Same here.
Hello,
What's up,
sir.
What's up, guys? I'm about ready to give up on y'all.
Give up
Yeah,
on
we're
us.
all kind of shot today, so we was actually talking about that.
Yeah, it's been one of those days.
Are you in
Who do
your
y'all got?
are you in your cave bedroom with the cave paintings on the wall?
No, I am in my living room with my weird crap all over the walls.
So,
All right.
Josh, you
Yeah.
have probably talked to Darby the least, so
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to pick his brain of what got him in archaeology or.
Well, Darby, would you like to introduce yourself first? That was
Not really.
not really. That's fine. I kind of introduced you in the beginning of the show.
I'm an old guy. I'm not into all this, whatever the hell this is, TikTok-y or whatever.
Into the podcast. Yeah. Well, we wanted to ask you some of the questions first. I mean, first and foremost, to kick this off, like, what started you on the path to become an archaeologist in the first place?
Oh, hell, I don't know. Well, it's something I always was interested and wanted to do. But, reality kicks in and you got to make a living. So I really never thought of it as being a real viable way to make a living. And so I went ahead and did it all anyway, and found out you can make a living at doing it. Not a great living, but you can make a living. So yeah, that's pretty much it. It was, as a kid, it was one of those things you thought, oh, you can't really ever get into, can't really do, other than volunteering your time to go out and dig holes somewhere.
Mm.
So
So you went to MTSU what for 4 years? Was it anthropology, or
yeah, for 4 years,
yeah?
we actually started the archaeology program up there. When I first went there, there was a whole two of us that were interested in archaeology and another two that were anthropology. And we didn't really have any much to offer at the university. So we decided we would try to recruit students into the program. And we were linked in with the sociology department. So I got with him and I was like, okay, how do we get more, courses that we want? And he said, well, you got to get me so many students. So we went on a little blitz campaign and got people signed up to take courses. Then I'd go to Dr. Heller and I'd say, okay, here's the list. We've got 38, 50 or whatever students. And so he would get the class for us. And eventually, while I was there, we got two more another anthropologist hired. We had one, Dr. Wells. We got Kano, and then we wanted an archaeologist. So we got Kevin Smith, who was doing classes for us while he was finishing his doctorate. And then we got him full time. Now he's the chair of after I graduated, we actually formed an anthropology department.
Yeah, he's
And
still
so
there.
he's the chair of the department now. So it was loads of fun. And so now we have our own department.
Yeah, I remember you saying that just with a 4-year degree, you could pretty much go on digs, but it was mainly like voluntary and stuff. So like to have your own to dig where you wanted to and you be over it, you was gonna have to get your master's, right? So that's
Right,
where
you got to get your master's to really be able to get any funding or anything like that. Now, I mean, I directed projects, but it was always there was somebody with a PhD, that was signing off on everything basically.
Mm.
So I'd run the field projects, and they would take care of all basically the paperwork, which is pretty standard. Yeah. So, but it was the problem with that, making a living at it. You got to go where the money is. So it's, mostly federal projects and state projects, and whatever department happens to need archaeology done in order to proceed with whatever project they're doing,
yeah.
whether it's forest or roads or whatever else. So you don't tend to get into too many interesting things, doing the bread and butter projects. Or you work for mining companies, all kinds of stuff like that.
Yeah, I know you said you've been to Mexico, and I don't. Where else have you been? And like just your big projects?
Just Mexico, a little bit.
And what were
So,
what was the job down in Mexico?
well, I didn't work as an archaeologist down there. I just used to travel, would go down there and check stuff out. It was always stateside if I worked,
Gotcha.
So
Is there like
that's
different
where the money
permits?
was at.
Is there like different permits to do like international like sites, or you?
Usually you have to hook on with somebody that has the funding. The year I got out of it, when I decided to go do my master's, I was signed up on, let's see, one project in St. Croix, one in Morocco, one in Guam, and there was another one down in Belize that it was signed up on, but that one got canceled because there was it Belize or Honduras or Guatemala, one of those places, and one of the archaeologists got shot down there, so they canceled the project.
Oh wow.
Which was unfortunate.
Yeah.
So that one got canceled. The other ones I decided just not to do, because I was at the time pursuing my master's degree.
Mm-hmm.
So,
oh, that's awesome. It's quite like a trip to go down though. Like,
oh yeah,
that's pretty amazing. So what we wanted to talk about today on this episode was because you were a part of the initial team that did the dig on Cardwell Mountain.
Yes.
And I just want to kind of talk about that and like what that is and what you guys think that is and all that, and like tell us about like how you got on that dig team and like what that project
Well,
was
I put that one together.
Oh, you put that one together. Okay.
Yeah. Right before I went into college, I guess I had heard about different things up there. And so, we went poking around up there, me and my little brother mostly. And then later when I went into college, one of my friends, Jeff Ashley, he would go with us, or me and him would go. And we'd just go all over the mountain trying to find what was up there and checking it out. So when we were in college and we were trying to build up classes and everything else, another guy that was involved in our group, found out that the university was offering money, for projects. And so I put together, decided, well, we'll do an excavation up on Cardwell. And so Kevin at the time, who was doing some adjunct work for us, I got with him and I says, okay, what do we need? And we put together a budget. So I went before the board and proposed it and completely blew them away on what we were going to do. And the only thing they didn't approve was a backhoe. Still regret that. anyway, so we got all volunteer workers to do it. We got some of the state guys involved, and some of the guys that work for the State Department of Archaeology, and they volunteered their time. And so we spent, oh God, I don't know, a couple months up there, camping out and doing excavations. And the university used it in their recruitment stuff for the university. And it's kind of what led to us getting our own department too, because it generated a lot of interest in archaeology. So then from there, the site set for a while, and then a group in UT took an interest in it, put an excavation in up there. And then eventually this all led to the interest in the state. Well, we proposed for the state to purchase it way back then.
And that's
so
like
they
early
put it
90s.
on. You what?
That was like early 90s when you was there.
Oh my God. Yeah, it was probably in the early 90s. Somewhere in there. Man, that's been a long time ago.
Wow.
So they put it on a list of properties to watch, and then when it came available to purchase, the state has bought it, and thank God is protecting it now. So, and turning it into a park, which everybody's going to know about before long anyway. So I can talk about stuff like that a little bit. So,
when you said you went up there and poked around a lot when you were a kid with your brother and stuff, like,
well, I wasn't a kid. Hell, I was still, what was I in, about my 30s, maybe?
Oh, okay.
Late 20s, early 30s. I guess a kid compared to now.
Okay. So what made you want to do the excavation there? Like, what was like hinted at, like, that there was something there?
Oh God, there is some really amazing, unique properties to that site. I found the more I got involved in archaeology and actually knew what the hell I was doing. I mean, when I first went up there, I didn't have a damn clue what I was doing. It was just kind of like, this is cool, and I didn't realize.
Had you heard stuff though? Like, what were you told that made you think like, oh yeah, this is a cool place to go check out? I mean, I know you live.
Well, I just heard there was a mound up there.
Gotcha.
And even at the time, that struck me as being a little odd. The more I've gotten into archaeology, the fact that there's a mound on top of a mountain is extremely rare. I cannot. I mean, there's some hill fort type structures up in Iowa, where they built them up on, on the higher elevations.
Yeah. But
south of there, mounds being on top mountains is unheard of. I mean, you're talking, well, the carbon 14 showed it was originally built as a woodland mound, which is not unusual for the woodland people to do some really bizarre crap like that. I mean, everything from effigy mounds up in Wisconsin or Iowa, excuse me, that are up on top of a bluff, where these guys usually farm the river bottoms. That's where they built their mounds, their cities, everything else was in the river bottoms. Why the hell they were up on a mountain is beyond me. They had no reason to. And that's why so far we haven't found any evidence that there was habitation there, which of course leads to the great little, it was a ceremonial site, which means jack. Just means we don't know what the hell it is. And whenever you see ceremonial attached to something, it means we don't know. It's like saying the Vatican is a ceremonial site. It doesn't explain anything, but it does, It's an answer, but it's really not, So just the fact of the mound being up there was unusual. the stone walls, the series of stone walls that are up there, that's what intrigued me the most at the time, because I knew that was unusual. I had traveled down to Fort Mountain, Georgia, so I'd seen the stone walls there. And of course, this is exactly the same type of construction. So, and Fort Mountain was the only one I knew of that had stone walls that could be attributed to Native Americans, at least in the Southeast. So to have another one that far away struck me as being very, very interesting. Then you got the Dolran up there, which our recent stuff up there shows more and more that that was man-made. And I know you guys have been up there with me on that one. And the more we take the solar and equinox readings on that, it's pretty damn conclusive that that was man constructed, you know.
Yeah.
Of course, you have the infamous map stone, or the misnamed map stone.
Oh.
That was always pretty damn fascinating too.
Yeah,
So I mean,
saw
you got
pictures of that.
all these unique, very unique features, you know, that set it apart from any other site I've ever seen or heard about, you know.
When you say misnamed,
Well, I mean, local legend always had it called a map stone because they all figured it was a map, a physical map of the area.
Yeah.
It doesn't. We did some extensive comparison to river systems around here. It doesn't match it. It doesn't match any known water systems. Now, of course, it could be a map of you know, the supernatural world has been explained, or the spirit world. It could be, you know, the shamans might have used it for that. I don't think so. Especially again in light when we were up there and actually did the comparisons to the solar patterns. You know, it follows the whole sun path all through the year, you know. As far as I can tell, I mean, preliminary. And then you had the second stone, which is unfortunately damaged, that, you know, mirrors it on an opposite scale. So the two in conjunction, you know, again, another thing is that it was utilitarian. I can't buy that one either. And like I was showing you guys, you have to crawl on your belly and lay in there and reach as far as you can reach for some of the markings that are in that overhang, the rock shelter. There is no damn way somebody used that for utilitarian purposes. You know, it's too smooth, it's too uniform. And of course, it happens to follow the whole path of the sun, which lines up perfectly. And when you take that and you got the peak lining up with the mound, you got the, you know, the peak lining up with the mound, you got the walls right on that same path, you got everything lining up with either the solstice or the equinox. You know, it shows one more thing that they were lining up in that same pattern. So I don't buy utilitarian. And
What do you think then?
well, I think they used it to track the movement of the sun, possibly the moon on the other stone. But of course, we won't know. That's gone.
Yeah.
Until somebody can piece back together from maybe the old photos and stuff where that actually lined up, which I guess with new computers they might be able to do.
Who
Or
has those old photos?
if we ever find the damn thing, get it put back in there, then
Yeah.
you know.
So, what is the story behind that? Because again, I thought that I know that people are like, oh no, there's photos floating around, but I've never seen them of the other side. And the photos that I have are like back to the 80s. So
The photos that I thought we got a hold of some photos of it, but when he brought them by, it turned out all the photos were from the one that's still there. He
yeah,
took the photos, unfortunately, after it was damaged.
I think that's
Now, again, if we could ever track down where White Eagle's photos are, um,
He had photos of the complete thing. Yeah.
I mean, I remember seeing them. He had some large blown up prints of both mapstones. And if we can ever track down who might have gotten them, that would be useful. Yeah. Have you had any luck on that, Randy?
No.
No.
But thinking about it, Dawn might have some of them. I never had to ask him about it.
Yeah, you need to do that. What about Gatto? Has he ever been able to track down the one guy that might actually have the stone?
No, nothing that we know of.
So someone has the piece?
Possibly.
Supposedly.
How did they get it? How did they get that piece out of there?
Well, probably. See, we always thought it was vandalized, but there's this rumor going around that somebody actually has it and made a coffee table out of it. Now, that
That's
would be
wild.
nice. That would be nice if they did. Well, the crazy thing, we did an excavation right there at the base of the mapstone, right? It was part of the project.
Mm-hmm.
And we were looking for fragments of it. There was none. There was no pieces of it laying there. So whoever busted it took it with them. They didn't just leave it laying there.
Yeah.
You know.
Listeners, if you can, if your friend or you know somebody has a weird, funky coffee table, let us know. We're just trying to confirm something.
Yeah. So
there have been 2 statues pulled out of there, correct?
2 of them,
And
correct?
that wasn't by a dig team, was it?
No, they were found by back when it was an active orchard and being utilized. 2 guys were digging, looking for artifacts, and they recovered. One guy recovered one of them, and then about a week later, the second one was found. The one has been tracked down. That was part of the project too, is tracking them things down. And one of them was found, and it sits up in the State Museum.
What's the
And
statue
the
of?
other one, I don't know, but I do have a lead on who had it, which I do need to follow up on. You know, so
What were the
that kind of-
statues of? Like,
they were effigy figures.
oh, okay.
One was a male, one was a female. Now, recently I found out they weren't actually, I always thought they were found and recovered from the mound when they dug the Apple Center in there.
Oh,
And
I got that picture up of one.
that's the effigy.
oh, gotcha. There's the one that's up in the State Museum. That's the male.
Gotcha.
And
Little human dude.
so the female is, I don't know, maybe I can recover the female. I got to check up on that lead I've got and see if I can find it. It's the granddaughter of the guy who actually found it.
Oh. What's
So
the process of like getting it back? Like through, like, do you guys go
well, I'm
offer people
hoping,
money or?
yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah, exactly. Well, first, you can give them the whole, it's for science and prosperity and all that. And they might fork it over, but generally, no. It generally takes money.
Okay.
And right now, with the state being involved, hell, they might be willing to fit the bill for it.
Oh,
I mean, I'd be willing to buy the stupid thing, but it'd be better
cool
if the
to
state
reunite
wanted to pay for it and I didn't have to. Yeah. So I mean, we did, like I said, we were able to, get the one of them back. due to our efforts. Now, if we can get the other one, that'd be even awesome. Anyway, what I was saying is I've always heard that they were recovered out of the mound. When that was an active orchard, they dug a made an apple cellar in the middle of the mound.
Yeah.
And I always assumed they were recovered when they did that apple cellar. But then I found out later they were not. They were from another location on the plateau, which means they were probably in graves. So that means there's actually graves up there outside of the mound complex, which is kind of interesting. But I always thought those things were buried in mounds, not in graves.
And you guys didn't find any graves when you did your excavation, right?
No, found no evidence of grave. In fact, the plow zone was so shallow that there wasn't much of anything, that you could recover for what you would normally look for as post holes, fire hearths, things like that.
What did you guys find?
You what?
What did you guys find in the excavation? Like, what was the
pottery fragments, a celt, or not a celt, a gorget, decorative gorget jewelry piece, a cache of arrowheads, which were actually arrowheads, not spear points. Just, little fragments of things. Didn't find any post holes, so no structures, anything like that. We got some good carbon-14 dating. So we did actually find one fire pit that was still enough there that you could get some charcoal out of it.
Darby, didn't you tell me that you guys found quite a few seashells there?
Seashells. Like human used?
Well, I remember somebody saying something about seashells being found, and that showed that there was trade going on up there or something like that.
No, I don't think we recovered them. That might have been somebody else. Can't remember any well, that gorget. No, the gorget was stone. It wasn't seashell. I think it could have been a shell gorget. Can't remember. Well, yeah, there was trade though. I mean, there was trade everywhere with these guys. They, like you always hear, I hear some of the locals talk about it being a trade center, a trading center. I don't quite know what they mean by that because, all these people traded.
Yeah.
And I don't think they had let's all meet here and trade stuff. It's
up on top of the mountain. That doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. I mean, you would trade village to village to, whatever. And I don't think it was like somebody like Marco Polo started out in the Gulf and traveled all the way up to Michigan carrying his stuff and then bringing copper stuff back. It was more like you would trade with the guys next to you and they would trade to the guys, and eventually stuff would diffuse all over the place. Because, I mean, we know that these guys as a whole traded for items that come out of the West and out of the Great Lakes region, out of the Gulf Coast region. And it's not uncommon to find, stuff from, shells out of the Gulf Coast, up in Iowa and Minnesota and all that. These things tended to move around quite a bit, or copper out of the Great Lakes region. So not a trade center, so to speak, not like you would think of in later culture, later history where we did
you would find more stuff if it was, right?
Well, like I said, I mean, yeah, we did set up trading posts and trading centers and all that stuff, but that's more of after the white guys came in, they set up actual trading posts. But the Native Americans, I don't think they, did things traded quite that way. It was more like, there were certain stones that were better for making, spearheads and arrowheads and everything else, and, like Fort Payne and stuff like that. And it tended to hold a value. And so it moved from group to group to group to group. It was like, yeah, we can get these guys really like that rock. So I'll trade you whatever for it.
So who was up on the mountain then? Who were these people?
Well, $1 million question. Okay, so originally, we know the mound up there from the Carbon 14 was built during what's called the Woodland period, right?
Mm-hmm.
Woodland period was the first phase of mound building. Okay, it's a large period of time, and you had like Pinson Mounds was a woodland mound site.
And how far back in time is that, though? Was the woodland time?
It's like 3,500 years away, right?
Something like that.
Yeah.
It was right after the Archaic period and before what's traditionally called the Mississippian. Now, not to confuse things, but it is a little confusing. You had a time period that's referred to as the woodland period, and then you have a woodland culture. In other words, a lifestyle of the woodland. And that overlapped into Mississippi and overlapped back into Archaic period. So while you had some people living the woodland lifestyle, you still had people living in the Archaic lifestyle. And then when you moved into the Mississippian period, you still had people that were living like they were in the woodland period. They weren't all suddenly Mississippian Indians and lived in fortified settlements.
It's kind of defined more by their technology than it is like on certain dates, right?
Yes, it's more of a lifestyle than technology.
Oh.
What separated it out? Your woodland people tended to not have a permanent place that they lived. They moved around from place to place. They weren't truly like nomadic, like say Archaic Paleo, but they didn't have a one spot that they stayed the entire year. By the time you get into the Mississippian groups, they tended to live in one spot. They had a defined territory. They built, that's where they built the palisade walled cities. They were pretty much on a city-state level where, they had their established cities and protected by a palisade wall. Usually they farmed the area around it and they tended to stay put. Where your Mississippian groups moved. They usually did what's called a seasonal round. So they might move 5-6 times during the course of a year. So they could harvest a resource here, a resource there. They knew that berries were plenty in this area and they'd go there and then they'd move here to get, whatever. So they didn't stay in one place all year, but they did start constructing mounds for the most part. So again, it's not unusual for the woodland guys to do stuff like this. And then when you get into Mississippian, they had no reason to be there. It wasn't where they lived. It wasn't a farming thing. So the thought is that the site became significantly important to the woodland culture, possibly earlier, and that carried into the Mississippian culture, where they still revered that site, made pilgrimages there, whatever. Personally, I think they celebrated the solstice and the equinox on that spot.
Was there a party area?
Yeah, big party place. That's a good way of looking at it, quite
frankly. And again, though, like we have Stone Fort, county away from us, and that's just what they tell you when you go to that park. They even have a day like on the solstice where it's like, if it wasn't for the trees, you could see between these mounds, the sun is coming up right there, and so we know that that's what they did. So it would just be doing it 30 miles away at another site.
Well, the thing with that, now, Old Stone Fort is is definitely a woodland site. And it apparently was abandoned by the time of the Mississippians, where Cardwell Mountain has a continuous occupation all through the woodland and then all through the Mississippian period. It was still revered and possibly much older, you know. In fact, I believe the Cherokee still consider it a sacred mountain.
They do. Yep.
So you got,
So do the Yuki.
you got what, roughly 3,000 years of almost continual usage of that. You can move a lot of rocks in 3,000 years, even if you do a few a year, you know. So that's my thought on it, is that it, I hate to say the term ceremonial site, but you know, that's what you're down to. You know.
It sounds like I mean, with you talking about like the solstice, seeing the solstice and stuff like that, and like the way it was set up, it does feel like it's almost like a Woodstock. Like once a year you show up and like get good seats for to watch the sun, man.
What the show is like, oh no, look, the sun's gone. You know.
Yeah. This
I
is
remember
the
one of the guys worked for the state that I took him up there with me, and he we got halfway up that mountain. He looked at me and he's like, he says, Darby, you're full of shit. He says, there ain't no damn Indian that would climb this mountain. And that pretty much sums up the whole mountain. It's like, why were they there? What were they doing up here? Why this one spot? And thinking about that over the years, you know, you've got an isolated mountain. It's the dominant structure in the area. It's the highest peak. It sets apart from everything else. It has the twin peaks, which may have some significance. And it happens that you have a nice little plateau there that lines up with the peak that you can build a solar observatory. And you can mark the passage of time. It has certain unique properties that I think set it apart and made it mythologically important. That sounded impressive, didn't it?
that was really good. That was like that made a lot of sense. I was like, yeah, you're right.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
'Cause it's like, you know, I come down once a year, and when I get to see the mountains down there, it's just like it's pretty awe-inspiring because we don't have really that up here in New England. So seeing them off these giants in the distance is kind of, it's like, oof. And then also, yeah, you're right. Hiking up those things is no joke. That mountain is no joke to get up.
Yeah.
Yeah. We took him up there last year after the con.
Did you wear them all?
We went
Well,
up
you
to the
know,
Vulture
I
area.
grew up, you know, I'm used to some mountains, and I was actually surprised that that's a hell of a hike getting up to that thing. It's
is.
not an easy task, even if you're used to being in mountains, you know. So, you know, it's a good challenging hike.
It's
You
a
know,
true test for the worthy to get up there and see that. That's what it is. This is the same site that has like the terraced steps. Is this that same site?
The terracing is where those walls are. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
right.
Yep.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Well, that was an early thought too, is that they might have been doing, you know, because we were contemplating whether or not, if they were living there, how the hell they were going to farm there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're relying on floods in order to farm. You know, because you have to have the soil be replenished and all that stuff. The other thought was some of the cave springs that come out up there could be bringing enough nutrients to replenish the soil for like a terrace farming operation. So the thought was that some of these walls were actually terrace farms.
Mm.
That I don't hold that one anymore. I don't think that had a damn thing to do with any practical purpose. It was more of a, for some reason, you have those things which line right up again with the solstice pattern. So I think the idea was you would start out at a location and follow the sun basically, end up on the peak, drop over the peak, you know, and every spot had a significance, the peak, the walls, the mount, you know. And I think there's the second series lines up with the equinox coming from the other direction. So I think in conjunction with all that, that's what it was for. Is like they've recently figured out in Stonehenge, you had the wood hinge, you had the Stonehenge, and the two of them were in conjunction with each other. It is approximately a day's hike to get over that mountain to the plateau. So, yeah, I think it was a once a year shot. You go up there, do your thing. Well, twice a year on the equinox and the solstice. And it happens to have all the criteria needed to construct such a thing.
So you mentioned the peak, and we've talked about before, like the structure that's up on there. Like, what do you think about that?
Whew, I've gone back and forth on this, but the initial thought was that it was possibly man-made. Geologically, it's a sandstone remnant. However, again, more recently, we've actually looked at the grain patterns in the rocks, and it does appear that the very top boulder that's up there came from a lower level. So if you've got that happening, and given everything else you got up there, it is highly likely that the top boulder was actually moved.
Huh. Yeah, because when I first saw it, it's like it looks like it's stacked stones the whole way. It's like, oh my
Well,
god.
you get the stacking effect in any formation because you get certain layers that are more susceptible to washing out and things like that. If you look at any, you know, not necessarily around here, but you go in other areas, you can see those clean separations in rock.
Mm-hmm.
And they look like they're blocked and they're stacked. And you might have the same effect going on there, that they're not necessarily human stacked, it's the erosion. But if you go to that top boulder and you actually look at the structure of the material that made that boulder, it actually came from a lower level. And the only way something can get from a lower level to a higher level, barring dispensation of gravity, is somebody would have had to have moved it.
Put it up there, yeah. Does that effigy line up with anything? Like
again, it lines up right with the mound. It's directly on the path of the sun. So they were either utilizing it, and again, by adding that top layer, and if you remove the trees, that is now visible from the mound.
Gotcha.
Pretty sure that if you removed all the trees, you could actually see that top boulder. And without that top boulder there, you couldn't use it as a sight stone. You would have to have that top boulder there to accomplish that.
Okay. It's just very interesting. It's just also very interesting because it's like the engineering alone of what they had to do to, like, you know, get everything lined up and figure, you know, it's just super interesting.
Oh God, yes, it kept me fascinated for the last 35 years. Randy, it's kept you fascinated quite a while too.
It's cool to go up there and see that thing. It's like
now, did they take you to the rest of it, or just
no? We just went to the effigy. The big mound, yeah. And then up there, they were telling me about the other area, but we didn't have time to get over there. Was the thing.
unfortunately, right now we can't get into the other area.
Yeah.
It's, you know,
It's under the watchful eye.
Legally we can.
Well, when we were there last time, they sure came within 20 minutes. So
God, they got there fast, which is good.
I did learn something from Darby when we was out there, because he brought just that marking tape, just like nurseries use, and we started putting it on the way, like on the trail there, because I mean, it's easy to get lost.
It's hell to get lost up there.
It wouldn't be a bad idea to do that again here like soon, next time we go up there, because it's getting. There's been a couple times I've got turned around up there, and I know where the hell I'm going.
Well, it's not so much, getting back or anything, because all you got to do is go downhill and you'll hit something. But it's trying to get back the way you want to go, because you can get turned around in a heartbeat up there. Like I said, I told you that one time we went up there and it was getting dark on us. So we just followed one of the ravines down, and we ended up, 20 miles by road from where we had started out, or where we wanted to get to. I got to throw this on the charger while I'm talking to you.
So I feel like this episode is just going to be all about Cardwell, but are you going to come back and talk about more stuff? You feel like you got enough stories?
We can. I do have enough stories.
Yeah, I'd love to have you back on and talk about some more of the areas. It was like a great history lesson, about like the area. I love that.
So one of the things I was going to ask you, you were talking about caves and stuff, and that place is riddled with caves. Did you guys ever do any digging, anything involved with that? Inside caves or around?
I did go into the historic entrance. Okay, the historic
entrance, right?
The historic entrance, in that part of it, they did recover. What the hell? It was some artifact. I can't remember what it was now that got dropped in there, prehistoric times. And so I did go in, got with Roy, who owned the cave at the time, and went down into the entrance and didn't find anything. Of course, to dig through all, you would have had to launch a major excavation to get down to, anything that's underneath all that. But we poked around in there for quite a while. And then we decided it would be funner just to go explore the cave. So,
so you had some interesting stories about the cave, didn't you? Or at least like maybe from the guides through it were telling you different things.
Would that be another day for another episode?
Yeah, we can set up one for that.
You want to get into supernatural stuff, that's a whole different discussion.
I'm fine with that if you want to do that later. I didn't know if
Yeah, let's save that.
We'll save that for its own episode.
As far as like, there was no wild caves that you dug in, right?
No, not any in this area.
I remember you telling me, like, this stuck with me back when I was a teenager. You were talking about caves being like sacred to Native Americans, and talking about any place.
You're right.
If you like in between
culture, you go into most cultures in the world, okay, and you can. Oh God, let me launch into the liminal speech, right? Okay, liminality. Here we go. All right. You go into most cultures, most religious practices, it's pretty much a universal thought. If you break everything down to its basics, ritual, ceremony, magic, it always involves the concept of liminality. Okay. Meaning anything that is liminal is dangerous. It's in between. It's the way our brains are geared. We try to put everything in a box. This belongs in this box. This belongs in that box. This is animal. This is fish. This is human. This is not human. This is us. That's them. We break everything into boxes so we can easily grasp and understand our surroundings. Okay. So anything that is not liminal that becomes liminal, that we can't put in a box, becomes weird, dangerous, scary. Simple classification systems, we still don't know what the hell to do with the duck-billed platypus, right? It's neither or, but it's both, and it's scary because it goes against our scientific principles. Well, there is no damn such thing as an animal that's liminal or doesn't fit in a classification system, because that's all made up shit anyway. It's how we decide to categorize our world. We decided the whale is a mammal and not a fish. Well, you go to other cultures, it's a fish. It swims in the ocean, it's got a tail, it's a fish, So it all depends on how the culture breaks everything down. So the purpose of ritual is to move one thing from one box to another box. We have a wedding ceremony to move people from single to married. We have a funeral to move them from the living to the dead, et cetera, et cetera. Graduation ceremonies to say that we're an adult, right? It doesn't work in our culture. You should go back and do it like they did in other cultures and whack the pee-pee, and that would tell these young men that you're a man. Yeah. Because you spend 3 or 4 days or a week getting tortured and sleeping out in the woods and running through rivers, and then at the end of it, they whack your pee-pee and put a burning stick down there to cauterize it. And when you're done, you're a man. Right? We need to do that, so we don't have all these in-between children somewhere between 20 and 30. They're still children, but they might be adults, maybe not. So I got off track just a little bit. It's all related.
It is.
So the concept is anything that's in between is the union of opposites. It's magic. Mistletoe. It's not a ground plant. It's not doesn't grow on the tree. Dew. It's not rainwater. It's not groundwater. It's magic. It's in between. Seashores. It's not either or. Crossroads. It's part of this road, part of that road. Picture yourself sitting in a threshold between 2 rooms. Which room are you in? You're in both, but you're in neither. That's what liminality is. It's that in between that's part of both, but neither. So all ritual and all magic stems from the in between places. So you take a cave, to get back on point. It's in between and it's both. Right? You get into the threshold of the cave. Is it above ground or below ground? It's both, but neither. It's a limited place. It's magic, right? This is where you get into the concept of building a pyramid. It's part of the sky. It's part of the earth. It's liminal. It's in between. So it's magic, right? So the more of these union of opposites you can combine, the more magic you have. So like you go into some of these sites down in Mexico and things like that, you got them lined up on the 4 compass points. You've got them built above caves so that you have the underground and the above ground all represented by that pyramid. Same thing with the different directions, the earth, the sky. If you can incorporate fire and water in there, even so much better, right? Dragons.
Most of ours around here are on peninsulas, around, like rivers,
right?
Stone Fort, all of that. Like
Stone Fort, it's built in 2 rivers. Okay. Yeah. Of course, there's the old theory about spirits not being able to cross rivers too, that might play a part in that.
Yeah.
So
I got you off when you were talking about dragons, so you can go back to dragons.
Dragons, the ultimate magical liminal creature. It combines all the union of opposites, fire, water. You look at any legend about dragons, it usually involves a cave. It involves fire, fire-breathing dragons. They live near water or on the seashore. They have wings, but they're like a snake. The snake is the ultimate ground creature representing the earth. Then you have the wings. Now you got a sky creature. Same thing with angels. You add wings to a person and you make this magical mythological creature. If you understand liminality, a lot of it makes sense. a lot of the things that we find, especially in the ancient world, starts adding up and making sense. This is a liminal place. So if you have a liminal place, you have magic. All right. So again, Cardwell Mountain, possibly just the liminal place of it. It's in between. It's a separate, it's not part of the distant plateau. It's its own entity. It's separate. But yet here it is in the middle of everything. Could be considered the middle of the world, you know. Then you have a mound up there that represents all of the parts that a mound or a pyramid represents. You got a magic place. So I think I covered it all.
Yeah. Oh, that'll be great though, but we'll get more into the supernatural side of stuff on another episode, which makes me very excited. But Darby, thank you for coming on here and talking about Cardwell and the dig site and yourself talking, telling us about who you are and stuff. And appreciate you coming on and spending some time with us, talking with us.
No problem.
Yeah, I enjoyed that.
Yeah, that was great. But I think that's where we're gonna wrap it up for tonight. Everyone, thank you for listening. Have a good night, and hopefully
you too.
You learned something tonight.
See you later.
See you later.
Thank you, Darby. Appreciate it, buddy.